Your team has a strong foundation of family engagement. Could you explain what family engagement means?
Yeah, so for me, when I think of family engagement, I don't just think about how our families, helping with fundraising or, just being involved in the school day, but it's more about our relationships with families. So when I'm thinking about family engagement, luckily I work on a team where we have students 5th through 8th grade. And that's an amazing time to start developing these relationships with families over the 4 years. So we think about not only how are we getting families to help out, support our community, but how do we get them invested in our program and most importantly invested in what their child's doing during their 4 years with us.
So what are your family engagement opportunities on your team?
Yep, so a big thing that we do, we start, so since we're a 5th through 8th grade team, we start every school year with summer mailing going home. So we introduce ourselves to new upcoming 5th graders. And during that time, we send home the student profile, and the students fill that out with their families to come in. It kind of lists out, who the student is, what they like to do, their hobbies, their interests, their passions. And then we also introduce our PLP structure, which is laid out in the Vermont Transferable Skills. And we try to see who they are, their strengths and challenges with each of those. So we see what their strengths and challenges are with communication, with problem solving, with informed and integrative thinking, with citizenship, and with self-direction. And that information comes in, and we meet with them early in the school year, so before the school year even starts. And that's our first conference. And that, right out of the gate, the families see that everything we do is about the student and about the child at the center. And that develops that relationship from day one. So one of the biggest things we do is have that communication with families, have that first conference with them, and really let them meet us, let us meet their student, and start developing those relationships. The second week of school, we go on a big camp out where we bring all of our students out to Grand Isle. We stay overnight in tent sites, so the kids are broken up into groups, and we have parent chaperones come and oversee the groups, even though they're, again, student-led. They kind of figure everything out on their own. They have to plan out the whole trip and what they're going to bring. But again, the parents are involved. And one of the neatest part about the camp out is at night, we have a big bonfire after our dinner, and other families and our former students come back from high school. And we do a couple really neat just team pieces while we're at the fire. And one of the pieces that really stands out, and that's one of the strongest moments, is we have a little candlelight where every student holds a candle, and then they say something that they're either excited for or grateful for, and we kind of give thanks. And we always have students share out, grateful for their peers, their teachers, their parents, and to kind of share some of the moments that really excite them about the upcoming school year. And it's just a time for us to be together as a community. And we always get feedback from parents. We're like, it's that moment. We've only been in school for 4 or 5 days that everybody felt like they were part of our family. So that's a huge thing, is just providing opportunities really early to make sure that we bridge those gaps and make sure everybody feels like they're in our community and supported. Throughout the school year, we do various fundraising efforts. We do bottle drives and things like that we get families involved with. We always do a theater unit, and again, we have families come in for that to help out with just staging and costuming and pieces like that. So we have just a variety of opportunities throughout where, again, parents will come in more as a chaperone role, but going back to one of the most important pieces is that our student-led conferences, when our parents come in with their students, the student shares what he or she has been doing throughout the school year, and we're focused on the student's growth. So we don't really spend time talking about a report card. Rarely do we ever talk about their standards-based report cards. It's all about what their PLP goals were and the growth. So we have those conferences 3 times a year, and that for us is what really shows these parents what their students are doing. And again, for a 5th grader to come in after being with us for a trimester, be able to say, here's how I'm growing, reflecting on that, and then saying, here are my next steps, and advocating for themselves, whether or not they want to change a goal or what their next steps are. We have families come say, I can't believe they're thinking like this. That's amazing. And they're so just mature of them. So we get a lot of buy-in through our conferences, and just for parents to see how strong their children are with their own reflective practices.
So what what is the role of family engagement and middle level best practices within a personalized proficiency-based system?
Yep, so going back to that, I always go back to those transferable skills and providing students with ample opportunity to show how they're growing in those different areas, especially with like self-direction and citizenship. So I think it's really important for families just be invested in what their child's doing and in any capacity that they can to help out. And it's even just that having having that conversation with your student about how the week's going, or checking in about their PLP. The way we facilitate that is our students have like these Friday checkoff sheets with all their teachers, where they go around and figure out if they have any work owed or if they're all complete. They go home over the weekend, parents sign off to say that they've seen it, and they also show that they've been looking at their PLP and come back, and that's just a quick check-in for us. But within the proficiency-based model, we're always looking at growth, and one of the best ways to think about how you're growing is constantly reflecting. So having the families involved in just that conversation, I think, is a key piece with that.
What advice would you give to someone who's interested in implementing this?
Start early. Definitely want to get families involved as quick as you can early in the school year. So it's and going back to that piece where it's about building the relationships and showing that the child is first. So you want, whatever you're doing, you always want to keep the student at the center of your work. So I would definitely advise, think about what work you're doing, how is it impacting the student learning, their growth, and then think as a group. So collectively, how is the teacher and the parents or the family supporting that student in their journey through their growth and education?
What would be like a year first year in implementing it? What would an ideal year look like?
So again, I would start off, depending on your situation, with how many years you have students. Again, we're fortunate to have them for 4 years. I think it's having early conferences. So I would say, right out of the gate, even before school starts, to meet new students and their families, and kind of come up with a plan and goals, and make sure that everybody's on the same page with, again, with what the student needs first. So thinking about what are our goals for the student and how are we going to see them grow. One of the best things you can do, and again, an ideal situation, is that you create these action steps with your students, so they're thinking about what their goals are and how they're going to continue to grow within their goals. And when the students have their action steps, they're thinking about what they're doing as a student to grow. And it's really important for the teacher to have a role and think about, all right, what's the teacher's role in the student's growth, and what are the teacher's action steps, and then also involve the families and the parents in saying, what can the parents do? What are their action steps to help with the student's growth as well? A couple of things that just make us unique is that the PLP really is at the foundation of our program. I'm very fortunate to be on a team that's been doing this for now 27 years, that's been standards-based and personalized. And like I was saying with our conferences, very little do we focus on a report card or scores or grades. It's really, we look at this, student in the center, the student's leading everything. So it has to be student-centered, student-focused. And our students, by the time we get them from 5th through 8th grade, they've had all these conferences. By the time they're leaving as 8th graders, they are going to high school being extremely reflective on who they are, not only as a learner, but just as a whole person, and being able to advocate for themselves, which is a huge piece for that transition to high school, is being a self-advocate, saying, here's what I need to be successful in my life. And I think just our structure lends itself to that, because we really put a lot of time and effort into focusing in on this PLP and giving students a lot of choice and voice. And it's their personal learning plan. It's very personal to them, and they're invested, their buy-in's there. And as I mentioned earlier, we catch them out of the gate in 5th grade, and from that first conference with parents, I feel like that's the immediate buy-in that we get. So it's really important to have those conversations, the communication, and make sure that the whole team is rallying around the student.